My new roommate, Clara, was the kind of person you could live with for a week and still not be sure she was real. I saw her twice maybe. Once as a shadow crossing the hallway, like someone passing through a room they didn't belong in. Once as a pale face behind a cracked door, eyes too tired for her age, watching me like I was a storm she'd already survived. But I felt her constantly. The faint scent of lavender in the bathroom after I hadn't heard anyone shower. The kitchen sink mysteriously empty in the morning. The coffee mug was washed and put away before I even realized it was dirty or like it had never been used. It should have felt comforting, like I'd lucked into the easiest roommate on earth. Instead, it felt like living with someone who knew how to move through a space without leaving proof. Then one morning, I woke up and found a piece of crisp, cream-colored paper stuck to the fridge with a magnet shaped like a smiling cat. At the top, in neat handwriting, it said, "House rules." I actually smiled. I thought, okay, here we go. The "don't touch my food" speech, the roommate boundaries, normal standard stuff. And the first few lines were normal. Clean up your own mess. No loud music after 10 p.m. Replace what you finish. I chuckled under my breath, relieved. Clara was just quiet and particular fine. I can do particular. Then I kept reading. Rule number 7. Do not leave the front door unlocked for any reason, not even for a second. That was intense, but okay. City living. Fair. Rule number 11. If you hear scratching from inside the pantry, ignore it. It will go away. I stopped chewing. Read it again. Then once more. Like the words might rearrange into something normal if I stared hard enough. Then my eyes dropped to the next one. Rule number 14. Never, under any circumstances, answer the door after midnight. My smile faded. I laughed once, short and confused, because what else do you do when your roommate's house rules start reading like a warning label? Then I got to rule number 21. Keep the bathroom mirror covered between 3 o'clock and 4 a.m. I felt the air in the kitchen change. Not dramatically. Just enough. Like the apartment had been listening the whole time, waiting to see if I'd take the list seriously. At the bottom, in smaller handwriting, there was a postscript. A single line, pressed into the paper like it mattered. These are for your safety. Please, just trust me. It was like she'd mashed up a safety manual with a ghost story. Clara was clearly an anxious person with a flair for the dramatic. I looked around the kitchen and thought, it was easy enough. I made a mental note to be gentle with her. I stood there in my socks, poured my cereal, grabbed the milk, holding the paper, trying to decide if my roommate was paranoid, a ghost, or if she was the only honest person in the apartment. For the next few weeks, I humored her. I didn't have many late-night visitors, and I double-checked the front door lock out of habit anyway. Ignore the scratching from the pantry. I heard it once, a faint rhythmic sound like a mouse scrabbling at the wood. It was unsettling, but I just turned up the TV. And like the rule said, it eventually stopped. The bathroom mirror rule was the most inconvenient. I'd set an alarm for 2:55 a.m. Stumble into the bathroom, drape a towel over the mirror, and then take it off an hour later. It felt absurd, like some bizarre college prank. But life was good. The rent was cheap, the apartment was clean, and my phantom roommate paid her half on time via a bank transfer every month. I never saw her deposit it. I never saw her at all, really. I started to wonder if I'd imagined her. Maybe she was a night shift nurse who just wanted to be left alone. The rules were her way of maintaining her precious solitude. I never saw her, and that's the thing. And then things got weird. At first I thought the rules were a joke, until the first time I broke one by accident, and realized the apartment wasn't the only thing living with us. The first rule I broke wasn't even on purpose. It was grocery day. I came home with my arms full, 4 heavy bags cutting into my fingers, keys clenched between my teeth like an idiot. I kicked the door open with my foot, stumbled inside, and let it swing behind me. Not closed, not latched. Just slightly open. I didn't notice right away. I was too focused on not dropping the eggs. I set everything on the counter, shook feeling back into my hands, and went to grab my keys off the table, and that's when I saw it. The door, just slightly open. A crack of hallway darkness staring into my apartment like an unblinking eye. The house rule replayed in my head like a perpetual cycle. I felt a small pinch of guilt. Rule number 7. I crossed the room and shut it, harder than I needed to, then clicked the lock. One simple mistake. 1 second. I told myself it didn't matter. That night, I woke up to the bedroom door creaking open, a sound so soft I wasn't sure it was real. A slow creak like wood shifting under weight. My eyes snapped open, and I lay perfectly still, listening. My heart pounding in my chest. Then it came again, longer this time. My bedroom door, opening, just a few inches. A thin blade of hallway light slipped across the floor and stopped near the edge of my bed. My mouth went dry. I held my breath, waiting, but nothing happened. I couldn't hear footsteps. No breathing. No whisper. Nothing. Just the door. Paused open, like someone was deciding whether to come in. I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to convince myself it was the building settling, or a draft, or my imagination. And then another creak. After a minute that felt like an eternity, the door slowly creaked shut again. Slowly, carefully. Like whoever opened it didn't want to be heard. I didn't sleep after that. In the morning, I stumbled into the kitchen and opened the fridge like I always do. The milk smelled wrong. Sour. I stared at it, confused because I just bought it. Then my eyes moved to the microwave clock, 12 o'clock. The oven clock, 12 o'clock. The little clock on the coffee maker, 12 o'clock. Every single one flashing the same way. Like the apartment had blinked and lost time. That's when the rules stopped feeling dramatic. That's when they started feeling accurate. I waited until I finally caught Clara in the hallway that evening. She looked like she always did, wisp, thin, pale, quiet, with eyes that looked 1,000 years old, almost out of focus. I demanded, trying to keep my voice steady. What was that? The door, the clocks. What's going on, Clara? But her eyes flicked immediately to the front door. To the lock. She just stared past me down the hallway, like she could hear something I couldn't. Then she looked at me, and her voice was barely a whisper. She just shook her head, her hands trembling. You left the door unlocked, didn't you? She said. It wasn't a question. I swallowed. It was for a second. Clara's face tightened like she was trying not to panic. It only takes a second, she murmured. That's why it's a rule. I tried to laugh it off, but my voice came out thin. What comes in? Clara didn't answer right away. Clara's face tightened like she was trying not to panic. I told you not to. It lets things in. Little things, she said finally. At first. Her eyes met mine, ancient and exhausted. They don't hurt you right away, she whispered. They just move things. They just want to cause mischief. She paused for a second, and the room felt suddenly cold and eerie. Then she said softly, they remind you you're not alone. She wouldn't say anything more, just scurried back to her room and locked the door. That spooked me. For a solid month, I was the perfect roommate. I followed every rule to the letter. I was a fortress of compliance. I became the most obedient roommate on the planet. I double-checked the lock so often it became a reflex. I ignored the pantry. I covered the mirror. I treated the list like scripture. And for a while, it worked. The apartment stayed calm, clean, quiet, too quiet. Clara stayed mostly unseen, but the lavender smell faded in and out like a warning I couldn't pin down. Then came Sarah's birthday. My friend Sarah, different from my roommate Clara, dragged me out for drinks. I told myself I deserved it. One normal night. One break from everything that night. I arrived home around 1:30 a.m. Warm and buzzing with that soft, careless happiness you only get when you've forgotten fear exists. The lobby was empty. But as I reached for the door, a taxi pulled up to the curb behind me. A woman stepped out, her face obscured by the shadows. She was older, small-framed. Her coat hung off her like she'd lost weight she couldn't afford to lose. She paused under the streetlight and looked at me like she'd been waiting. "Excuse me," she said, voice frail, thin and shaky. "Could you hold the door? I live here, I forgot my keys, I froze. I hesitated. Because Clara's list flashed in my mind like a red light. Rule number 14. Never, under any circumstances, answer the door after midnight. But this wasn't someone knocking. This was a neighbor. A normal request. A human moment. She looked exhausted, maybe a little scared. It felt cruel to leave her stranded outside on the street. So I swallowed the unease and forced a smile. Of course, I said, and I held the heavy door open for her. She stepped inside, close enough that I caught the faintest scent, not lavender. Something sweet and wrong. Like perfume over something rotting. She tilted her head toward me and smiled. It was quick, grateful. Flash of teeth. She hurried past me toward the elevator without another word. I watched her disappear down the hall. And for the first time since moving in, I felt like I'd done something I couldn't undo. When I got to my apartment door, the air behind it was cold. Not window cracked cold. Cold like the heat had been drained out by something hungry. I stepped inside and flipped on the light. The apartment looked normal at first. Then I saw the picture frame. A photo of my parents and me, one of the only ones I'd bothered to hang up. It was face down on the floor. The glass was shattered. I stood there, staring, trying to make it make sense. No wind, no vibration. Nothing that should have knocked it down. My hands shook as I cleaned it up. I kept telling myself it's a coincidence. You're overreacting. It must have just fallen. But then things escalated. In the quiet of the kitchen, I heard it. A soft scratching from inside the pantry. Not a mouse. Not quick little taps. Slow. Deliberate. Like fingernails dragging down wood from the inside. I turned the TV on and turned it up loud. I didn't go near it. I remembered Clara's voice. Ignore it. It will go away. Eventually, it did. But the silence it left behind felt thicker than the noise. That week, the dreams started. Not full nightmares at first. Just fragments. Vague, formless terrors that left me waking up in a cold sweat. Being in a hallway that wasn't mine. A door that wouldn't open, no matter how hard I pulled. One night, I dreamt of a woman with a smile too wide, teeth too sharp, who looked just like the woman from the taxi standing under a streetlight. And always something watching me from the dark side of glass. The final straw came on Tuesday. I got home exhausted. The kind of exhausted that makes your brain skip steps. I'd had a terrible day at work and came home wanting nothing more than to take a long, hot shower and a reset to forget the world. I didn't check the clock. I didn't think. I walked into the bathroom and turned the shower on. Only when the mirror fogged did I glance up and see the time reflected at me. 3:15 a.m. My stomach dropped. Rule number 21. I should have covered the mirror. I should have turned away. But I was standing there already, staring into that cloudy glass while the steam thickened the air. I was so tired I completely forgot about rule number 21. I stepped into the steamy bathroom, stripped off my clothes, and looked at my reflection in the fogged-up mirror. And then the fog began to clear, slowly, like someone was wiping it from the inside. My reflection sharpened, and my blood went cold. Because it wasn't mine. It looked like me, yes. But wrong. This version of me was gaunt. Hollowed out. Dark circles like bruises under the eyes. And it was smiling. Not a friendly smile. A slow, predatory smile that didn't touch its eyes. A slow smile, like it had been waiting for me to look. My body locked up. I couldn't breathe. The reflection lifted its hand. Not mirroring my movement. It was moving on its own. It pressed its palm flat against the glass from the other side, and the steam around it curled away, like the mirror didn't want to hide it anymore. My body locked up. My blood ran cold. Its mouth moved, carefully, like it wanted me to understand. I just stared as the thing in the mirror mouthed one word. Soon. Something in me finally broke. My heart is trying to beat its way out of my ribcage. I didn't scream. I couldn't. I stumbled backward, slammed into the wall, and the towel rack rattled like a warning bell. My hands are fumbling. I grabbed the nearest towel with shaking hands and threw it over the mirror like I was smothering a fire. Then I ran down the hall and pounded on Clara's door so hard my knuckles burned. Clara! I whispered, shouted. Clara, please open up. Clara. Clara, you have to tell me what's happening. The door cracked open. Clara looked worse than I'd ever seen her. Her face was ashen. Her eyes were red-rimmed, ancient. She didn't ask what happened. She just stared at me like she already knew. You looked in the mirror, didn't you? She whispered, her voice cracking. I warned you about all of it. My throat was tight. What is it? What are they? I begged. The things that get in? The thing in the mirror? Clara flinched at the question. Then she looked past me into the hallway toward the bathroom like something might be listening. And in a voice so quiet it felt like a confession, Clara whispered, They're parasites. I stared at her, her ancient eyes filled with a sorrow so deep it was bottomless, my pulse pounding in my ears. Parasites? They feed on fear, she said, on carelessness. On small mistakes you tell yourself don't matter. Her eyes flicked toward the bathroom again. They attach themselves to places, she continued, voice cracking, and to people. And once they're in, they don't leave. They wait. For what? I whispered. Clara's throat bobbed as she swallowed. She looked like she hadn't slept in years. For an invitation, she said. A broken rule is an invitation. She looked past me down the hall. I shook my head slowly, trying to keep my mind from splitting in half. Then why are you here? Why are you doing this? Clara hesitated. And for the first time since I'd met her, her expression shifted into something raw, not fear. Shame. I didn't write those rules for you, she said quietly. I blinked. What? I wrote them for me, she admitted. They're reminders. Ways to keep myself safe. My mouth went dry. A cold dread washed over me as I finally understood. You mean? You've broken them before. Clara's eyes glistened not with tears, but with something heavier than crying. She gave a small, sad nod. The last one, she whispered. Rule 28. My stomach turned. The man in the gray suit? Clara shivered like the words themselves were cold. He was so normal and handsome, she said. He stood across the street like he didn't belong anywhere else. He looked sad. Alone. Just standing there in the rain. I felt sorry for him. I looked right at him. She lifted her gaze to mine, and I hated how human the story sounded. I felt sorry for him, she whispered. I looked right at him. Her voice dropped even further. And he looked back. I even smiled. She shivered, wrapping her arms around herself. The hallway felt suddenly narrower. Like the walls had shifted closer to listen. That's what starts it, Clara said. Once you see him, really see him, he knows you can be reached. He's the one who let the others in. He opened the door for them. Now they follow me everywhere I go. My heart lurched. So you're haunted? Clara's laugh was small and bitter. Followed, she corrected. She stared at the floor like it was easier than staring at me. This apartment, the last one, the one before that. She shook her head slowly. The rules just slow them down. They buy time. I stared at her as the pieces started clicking into place. The constant moving, the fear, the warnings. As we stood there, I could hear a soft sound from the kitchen, a faint scrape. Like something shifting its weight behind a door. The pantry. My mouth went numb. Why didn't you tell me? Clara looked up then. In her eyes wasn't panic. It was resignation. Because if I tell you too soon, she said softly, you'd leave. She paused. And if you leave, she added, they follow me anyway. I took a step back, suddenly not sure if the hallway was safe or if I was. She wasn't trying to protect me from the apartment. She was trying to protect me from her. She was the source. She was the haunted one. What do we do? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Clara's expression hardened, a flicker of something new in her eyes. There's only one rule left that matters now, she said softly. I waited for her to point to the fridge, to the list, to some instruction that could fix this. But she didn't. It wasn't on the paper, she continued. It's the one you learn when it's too late. My voice shook. What is it? Clara held my gaze. And in that moment, she didn't look like a ghost. She looked like someone who had been running for a long time. And finally ran out of road. Only one of us gets to leave, she said. I barely had time to process the words before Clara shoved me. Hard. My back hit the wall. My feet stumbled. I threw out an arm to catch myself, but the floor felt wrong under me, like it was tilting on purpose. Clara, what are you? I felt a sudden, sharp pain in my back as Clara shoved me again. This time with a strength I never would have thought she possessed. The world tilted. And suddenly I understood. This wasn't panic. This was a decision. The living room window was behind me. I twisted my head just enough to see through the curtain, and there he was. Across the street, illuminated under a lonely street lamp, perfectly still. A tall, thin man in a flawless and perfectly tailored gray suit. He wasn't looking at Clara. He was looking directly at me. And when his mouth curved into a smile, it wasn't wide. It was polite. The kind of smile you give when something you ordered has finally arrived. Clara! I tried to grab her wrist. My fingers passed too easily, like she was colder than skin. She shoved again. Glass shattered behind me. Cold night air rushed in like a breath I didn't ask for. As I fell, my mind caught on one last detail, one last cruelty. Clara didn't look afraid. She looked relieved. The last thing I heard was Clara's voice, no longer frail, but clear, calm, and cold as a winter morning. Thank you, she said. You've been a wonderful roommate. The street rose fast. The lamplight stretched. And the last thing I saw, just before everything went white, was the man in the gray suit lifting his hand not to wave. To tip his head, like a greeting, like a welcome, like I'd just been introduced. And as the darkness took me, the truth settled in, heavy and final. The rules were never for my safety. They were a test. An audition. And I had just failed, or perhaps from her perspective, I had passed perfectly. I was the new invitation. The new sacrifice. And now the man in the gray suit had a new address to visit.